I'm unmuted. Okay, I'm always worried about that. Welcome to our talk about going beyond the monitor. We're going to be talking about prospecting, but before we do that, I love hearing about people's vacation plans because I have not really gone anywhere. So I would like to know, RaeAnne, where you are going on your next vacation. I'm really excited to hear about it because I know it doesn't sound that fun, but it sounds fun to me.
So very exciting stuff here. My grandpa is turning 80 and he lives in Moses Lake, Washington, which is basically in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
But it'll be a good time. I'm sure.
I like that. Are we like partying? Is it kind of chill? What's the vibe for grandpa?
I can't imagine it's too wild of a party, but it'll be a good time, I hope.
Okay, love it. Michael, can you beat Grandpa's 80th birthday with your vacation plan?
Yeah, I don't think I can. My dad actually turned 80 last year, and he's a bit of a party guy. He still like goes clubbing in Ibiza amongst other things. So yeah, maybe it will be a wild party for RaeAnne. Who knows? But no, my vacation plans. I'm actually going to Spain, to Barcelona and Madrid to do a couple of sales kickoffs, and I'm planning to spend a few days there before to like have tapas, being good weather. I'm in the UK, so it's quite cold here. So yeah, that's my next vacation plans. We actually call it holiday in the UK, but I've started saying vacation quite a lot as well. And a lot of my British friends are like, vacation? What are you talking about? So yeah.
All right. Thanks for letting us know your holiday plans. I should have changed it up. Now I know next time. Well, great. That sounds fun. We've got an 80th and we've got Spain. I think both sound really lovely. Let's dive into today, folks. We're not going to be just talking about vacation. I'm sure you will be much more tactical than this as well. But today's event is hosted by the team at Modern Sales Pros. And if you're not familiar with Modern Sales Pros, we, of course, as we like to say, are the world's largest revenue leadership community for those in the revenue world, whether you're in sales management, sales ops, rev ops, whatever you are, we've got your back. And our mission is to create an environment for our 20,000 and growing members to answer questions they might not even be thinking about, to see around corners that they might not even know about. And we do that through great live sessions like today, and hopefully in the future in-person events. We've been saying that for the past year, so maybe it will come true in the next year or so. If you're not a member and you are attending this event, we're going to invite you afterwards, and we hope that you'll join us. But enough about MSP. Today's session is not possible without the sponsorship from the team at SENDOSO, and I've been asked to give SENDOSO's spiel for you today, so I'm going to do my best. Okay, SENDOSO is the leading sending platform that delivers modern direct mail, personalized gifts, e-gifts, and other physical impressions, TM, at scale. And this makes it possible to build stronger, deeper, and more trusted relationships that move everything up and to the right. I hope I made Natalie proud. So today we are going to be talking about some really awesome things. Here's the agenda. We're going to be talking about strategies for building virtual connections with prospects, building pipeline, and then strengthening your prospecting relationships. Before we get into that, some quick housekeeping notes for you. Yes, this is being recorded. Yes, we will send it to you, and you can send it to your colleagues because we know you're going to love this content. And the most important housekeeping note, we do have a chat feature in this Goldcast, and we love it because it's super interactive. So please ask folks questions. I see Alex in there giving us the clapping emoji. I see Travis in there saying hello. Katie's popping in. We want that energy. We want you to be really interactive because that's why we have this platform, and our speakers are here to answer all of your questions. With that, let's do some introductions. I'm Taylor Kayberry, one of the community events managers at Modern Sales Pros. I'll help moderate this conversation, but the stars of the show are right here on this slide. We've got RaeAnne and Michael with us. RaeAnne, give us a little bit about your background and why you're qualified to be talking about this topic today.
Sure. So I actually started as an SDR at SENDOSO about 4 years ago, worked my way up to manager, then director, and just well involved in all things sales development, prospecting, all of that good stuff.
Awesome. Michael?
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love the fact RaeAnne used to be an SDR. I run a sales consulting company called Growth GENIE. About 2.5 years old as a company, so relatively young, but work with a lot of SDRs and AEs, helping them build sales cadences, sales playbooks, and then training and coaching them how to use it. And yeah, definitely always, I think, trying to help salespeople stand out, because I think one of the biggest battles when you're doing sales is people get hundreds of emails every day. So it's like, how do you make your email stand out from everyone else's? And I think, yeah, using direct mail and things like SENDOSO is a good way to do that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today's discussion.
Awesome. I'm going to pop these slides off so you can only see our amazing faces here. And let's dive right in. We know that these 2 years have been wild, you know, whether you're at your 80th birthday party for your grandpa or your father. It's just been a wild time, and it's been anything but normal, and the concept of normal has changed completely. Some folks are half remote, fully remote, not at all, and that's been really challenging, as you said, to stand out as a seller, right? To grab this attention because there's so much going on. So RaeAnne, I'm going to pop this question to you first. What strategies have you found that work really well to build those connections virtually with prospects?
Yeah, I think it all really starts with personalization. I think if you are going about reaching out to somebody virtually, you have to stand out. There's so much noise, there's so much clutter. You have to make it very clear that you're reaching out to a specific prospect for a specific reason. So I think it really starts with personalization for sure.
Okay, awesome. And then I'm curious how you start to leverage like the authenticity of personalization without it being creepy or without it being a little too much. How do you find that balance?
Yes, there's definitely a line. Don't be creepy. I always say if you are like super deep in a Facebook feed or Instagram, you've gone too far. You should probably stick to LinkedIn, maybe Twitter if there's some pretty obvious stuff there, but you definitely don't want to take it too far. I think often SDRs as well are looking for something too obvious. There's often times where I'll get with one of my SDRs and they're like, I can't find anything on this LinkedIn page. And then we go and look, and there's a whole bunch of stuff about what they've done in their career. It may not be obvious, like I love hip hop or I love dance, but it's still something that you can go off of. So don't take it too far and leverage what's available on LinkedIn and Twitter.
That's fair. What kind of things in their career are you looking for? Like, are there key words that you can let the audience know to keep an eye out on?
Yeah, I think milestones are always big ones. So promotional path, stuff like that, job changes, those types of things are probably the biggest, most obvious ones. And just accomplishments in general.
Love that. Awesome. I'm curious, like, do you use video prospecting, you said, but what's your best video tips? Like, if you've done video before, if you've seen someone send a really awesome video, what stands out for you?
Yeah, so keep it short. Keep it short. And again, it has to be personalized. Like if it is clearly generic and you sent it to a bunch of other people, I'm probably going to stop it within the first couple of seconds. But if you're mentioning my name and you're mentioning a little bit about me, I am definitely more likely to watch it through and through, assuming it's not multiple minutes long.
Okay, fair. We've got a short attention span and not a lot of time. Michael, what about you? What's the things that you're finding that build strong connections?
Yeah, I think I would add on the video side, like we love videos at Growth GENIE. One of the things we recommend is actually not just taking like a selfie video, but you can use a tool like Vidyard or Loom to actually share screen on something that's like relevant to your clients. If you go to their company website, like RaeAnne was mentioning, like a trigger, maybe they changed jobs. So you could go on their, even you could go on their LinkedIn and say, hey, on your LinkedIn, I noticed you just changed role. Or you could go on the company website, the careers page, and say, hey, I noticed you're hiring this position, or I noticed you've got this customer. So that's ticking the two boxes RaeAnne mentioned, which is one, you're being personalized, and two, you're doing it like through a video to kind of show you've actually done the research. So that's something that works really well. When it comes to personalization, a big mistake I see is like people do personalization for the sake of it. So what I mean by that is they go, oh, I noticed we went to the same university, and then they go into some like huge sales pitch. So the personalization has like always got to be relevant to what comes afterwards. You got to kind of tell a story. So say it is they've had a recent job change and they just started, let's say, as a VP of marketing. You still got to tie that into somehow what's like the business objectives they're going to be looking at in those first 90 days. And I think the reason this personalization thing is important that RaeAnne is talking about is that basically in the first, whenever you contact someone outbound and they have absolutely no idea who you are, the first thing they're thinking about is why me? Like, why is, say you were to contact me, Taylor, I'm thinking, why has Taylor specifically reached out to me? Because I have no idea who she is. Yes. So it's really important that first line in a cold call, first line in an email, first line in a LinkedIn message, you cover that you're saying, this is why I specifically spoke to you. And a tactic I always say to sales teams is try use the word you or your rather than we or I, and it will just get you in the habit of speaking about the other person rather than yourself.
Ooh, got some gems right there. I love that. Why me? Okay, taking lots of notes. Cool. Anything to add on this? Any more strategies? Because I have a question for both of you.
One thing going back to the video prospecting that our SDRs really like to do is screen share, like you mentioned, leverage Vidyard, but show the send, the physical send that you plan to send to the prospect. Say, hey, I want to send this over your way. I see, you know, you love hip hop, whatever it might be. Let me know if you're, you know, respond. Yes, I'll accept if you want me to send this your way.
I love that. If anyone's listening out there, I love chips. So okay. Huh? Any chips. Matter.
Chips. Just all chips.
Cheap is a cheap prospect, Taylor. Yeah, just send you like Nike trainers or anything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm curious. We talked about this on our summit that was a week ago, 2 weeks ago now. And Lars was moderating an event and he was asking folks about their most memorable prospecting story. And he had this amazing story about someone who prospected to him. They played baseball and they sent him this bat. Do either of you have a story that really sticks out where someone's kind of just blown you away in their prospecting skills? I'm going to be so disappointed if you say no, but
I can speak to some fun ones that my team has done.
Yes.
So one that really stands out is, I think she was a VP of marketing and she was all into WWE, like very, very into it. So they sent her, you know, a championship belt, linking it to her accomplishments as a marketer, obviously providing the value prop as well. Exactly what Michael has mentioned about making it relevant to her, not just to her, but to the business as well and what she's doing in her career. So that one sticks out for me for sure.
That's very cool. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I can give a couple about like me as a buyer, and then also kind of like RaeAnne was saying, some of the teams that we work with. So one of my favorite stories is a client ended up buying this software, and the sales rep, what they did. So I think RaeAnne talked about Twitter. So they went on Twitter, and she's like really into cooking and food, and basically, but she put this tweet up about how that she likes spaghetti hoops on toast. And I don't know if they have spaghetti. Do you have spaghetti hoops in the US?
SpaghettiOs. That's, I think, what we.
Yeah, the SpaghettiOs. Yeah. So even though she rates herself as a gourmet chef, she was like, "This is like really basic thing that I love doing," and she put it on Twitter. And then anyway, they managed to use that as part of like relevance, but they tied it into like a specific business need, like I was talking about earlier. So that was like a really great story, and that was literally the first interaction, first email that they'd sent. And then on the buying side. At my last company, we bought like a marketing technology solution, kind of like an account-based marketing solution. And at the time, I was like the head of growth, and then the CEO, COO. There was about 5 stakeholders involved in the buying decision. And actually, at the time, I used to live in Medellin in Colombia, and even though we were a US registered company, a lot of us were living in Colombia at the time. And the guy that won the deal in the end, he was super curious about Colombia, because a lot of the thing is with curiosity, you can't fake curiosity. So it's like what I was saying about personalization is if you're like, oh yeah, like I saw this program on Colombia, and you're kind of making your own assumptions. Whereas this guy was just really interested. He's like, why are all these expats like living in Colombia? These like American and British guys, like what's going on there? And he was super curious. Yeah. And he also made the effort to, like, we talk about account-based sales. He made an effort. He literally built individual relationships with all of us, and he knew all of us. So if any of you are like in B2B sales, like enterprise sales, you don't want to just build a relationship with one person. You want to try and build a relationship with multiple stakeholders. So.
Wow, that's impressive. Awesome. All right, let's move on. I know we have a question. I want to save that to the end, but I want to talk about really tactical ways to get your pipeline and your response rates a little bit better. We talked about some tech that you use for you're prospecting, but what technology are you using for your pipeline and response rates? And what's your strategy for increasing those? Michael, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I always talk about the rule of reciprocity. So what I mean by that, if you can give something to your buyers first, that's not just something random, but something relevant to them. I think this is why solutions like SENDOSO exist. Then that helps build trust, because unfortunately in sales, right? If you work in sales, the hard truth is most people don't trust salespeople, unfortunately, especially if you're selling to like IT or data science or something like that. There's not huge trust in the sales business. But if you break that norm and you're seen more as like someone helpful, so if you offer, it could be you offer a piece of content, it could be you offer something like direct mail using something like SENDOSO. At that point, you've built trust. So that's what I recommend is basically there's a study that was done by Gong and it analyzed 500,000 outbound emails. And it said, if you ask for people's interest versus asking for their time, you're twice as likely to get a reply. So that's normally what I recommend. Say, hey, we've got a piece of content or we've got something that may be of interest to you. Would you be interested in seeing it? And then once they say yes, you've built that rapport and then you can try and get the meeting. So that's something we see that gets really good reply rates.
Love that.
Yeah, we see the same thing. So highly recommend asking for interest as opposed for the meeting up front, for sure.
Interesting. I know that something that we've talked about in the past too here is just making sure you're always adding value. And that's what I'm hearing from both of you as well, is like even in the first email, it's like, here's how I'm adding value to your life by asking you your interest or your time. RaeAnne, do you want to dig into more of that?
Yeah, definitely. So tools specifically, I would say for us, 6 Sense is a game changer. We are using that for intent data, and that has been huge for where we prioritize our time. With that, we also leverage outreach for sales and automation, and that is huge for us. Very, very helpful. So the combination of those two, and as well as obviously taking a multi-channel approach, leveraging SENDOSO sends, your emails have to be solid. They have to be well put together. We actually leverage Lavender to help with that. So it is an email AI assistant, if you will. And we've seen a lot of success with following the AI tips that Lavender gives us to create better emails.
Awesome. And speaking of tools, how often are you reevaluating the tools that you have? Like, what's something that's a red flag to you? You're like, okay, this is not working. And how often would you assess that?
Pretty regularly. I think with something like 6 Sense intent data, you have to make sure your algorithms are set up correctly and showing you the right things, making sure that the intent data is accurate and seems to be working. As far as our sales engagement tools, like outreach, like that one, we're pretty much always we meet with them regularly, constantly, making sure everything's going well there. So I guess you could say we're always evaluating.
Always evaluating. Love that. Michael, what about you?
Yeah, I think unfortunately a lot of these tools, they tie you into like year contracts. So I don't think you can, sometimes you just have to make the most of what you got. So I think it's, making sure you got a good relationship with your CSMs at those companies. And in terms of additional tech, I'd mention like LinkedIn Sales Navigator is an obvious one. But what we find with a lot of sales teams is they don't use LinkedIn Sales Navigator effectively. So there's 3 things I would talk about with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. One is really use it to understand the buying chain. So like, as I said, if you're in B2B enterprise sales, you want to like map out who are the main stakeholders and decision makers. The second one is LinkedIn's got 2 quite cool functions. If we talk about the relevance personalization that RaeAnne was talking about. So one is you can actually see people that have posted content on LinkedIn in the past 30 days. So that's quite good because I think only about 10% or even less of people on LinkedIn are like actively posting content. But if they are, that's always a good excuse to get in touch. So as to like prospect either of you, I could say, hey, I listened to your talk on like prospecting in a hybrid world with SENDOSO, right? And then it's your why of getting in touch. The last one is, I think this is actually what RaeAnne mentioned around like recent job change. So it will show you like people that have changed job in the past 90 days. So that could be that they've got promoted or they've like gone to a different company. So those are like really good, what we call like trigger events that you can use on Sales Navigator, which are like good excuses to get in touch with people.
Awesome.
Yeah, sales nav's a big one. Gotta have it.
Any other points that you want to add in this topic before we move on? Cool. All right. So we've talked strategies for prospecting. We've talked tips for building your pipeline. The last thing I want to review is kind of digging into that authenticity piece we talked about earlier. We just touched on it a little bit, but we know that customers are really essential to our business. They make strong customer advocates, and that impacts your company in so many ways. And a lot of that starts with your first point of contact. We talked about adding value, right? Like, here's why I'm contacting you. How have you found ways to make your relationships really strong so that they become customer advocates? Aside from that personalization piece, maybe digging more into that personalization piece, but how are we making these customer advocates really work for us? RaeAnne, I'll go with you first.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that, like, when you're an SDR and you're prospecting, you are typically the first interaction. So it has to be well done. If you utilize all of the stuff that we've been talking about, leveraging personalization, all of that, then you should be starting to build that trust, kind of like what Michael had mentioned. And then once they do go further on funnel, become customers, I think it's very important to as well make sure that you are building that customer loyalty. So something that we like to do to help with that and increase retention is onboard them with, you know, gifting packages, swag packages, like get them excited about becoming a customer and using the product. Maybe some materials on educating them about the product, but really just starting off strong with like, welcome, so happy you're a customer. Like, here's how we want to make sure that you feel like you're set up for success to use our tools.
Love that.
Yeah, I think actually using like direct mail or gifting and like something like SENDOSO, I actually think the most powerful bit is for current customers and like customer success. So even though I'm a sales guy, I think customer success always is number one, right? I mean, there's so many stats around how it costs you like 8 times as much to get a new customer as like, you know, renew your current ones. So I think it's really important using like direct mail like as part of a, you know, customer success strategy. And one of the things when it comes to like direct mail and gifting, I always say is don't do the equivalent of like a spray and pray, like outbound cadence, where you do like a one size fits all message. You get your company swag and you just like send it to all your customers. Try and do something more personalized, especially if you've got some really high paying customers, right? So like a couple of things we've done in the past year, for example, like one of our customers, the VP of sales, like had a kid, and then I knew that he liked Greek mythology. So I sent him like a cartoon book of like Greek mythology and stuff he could read with his kid. Another one was like a marathon runner, like a CRO. So we sent him like a Nike voucher to spend on trainers for like his next race. So stuff like that. I mean, with your customers as well, you're at a privilege in that you know what their interests are. You've got to know them. So like take advantage of that, and then, you know, use something like SENDOSO or any type of gifting tool to send them something that's relevant to them.
Awesome. Very helpful. Anything else, RaeAnne or Michael, about that point? Because we've got 2 fun questions in the chat. Okay, cool. All right, let's ask this one. Katie said, what's the best prospecting email you each have received, and why was it so effective in generating a response? Anyone want to take that first?
Tough question. Good try. It's a good, tough one to think of.
The best prospecting email, I would say it probably had a vidyard in it, the one that I'm thinking of specifically. And honestly, it was obviously tailored to me. There was a video for me to watch, and the timing was actually right. Like, that was the biggest piece for me for actually responding. Was it was relevant to what I needed at the time, or actually what our sales ops team at the time needed. So at the least I was able to, you know, communicate that to them and say, hey, actually, you know, you need to loop in this person here.
Oh, relevancy, timing. That's something that we didn't talk about either, but that's very important. Michael, do you have one?
Yes, I think kind of similar. So it was, I think it was a girl that contacted me on both email and on LinkedIn. And what happened is she was following my content on LinkedIn and said, hey, I noticed this post. I thought it was quite interesting, but I noticed you don't post many videos, right? A lot of it's text, a lot of it's photos. So what I'd like to do is we can help you create videos of your posts. So it was really relevant because one, it was a gap in that she was saying, look, you don't have many videos in your content. And two, the why was there. And it was that trigger I was talking about before, like, hey, I've been like looking at your LinkedIn content. And I think when you do that approach, there's always a bit of ego stroking, right? Because everyone that posts content on LinkedIn, they want people to see it, right? So I think that's always a good tactic to use.
Awesome. Okay, Katie, I hope we answered your question. I'm going to do a little thumbs up too. Mark answered. Oh, and then she has a follow-up question. They have a follow-up question. Best piece of direct mail you've each received. I hope it has something involved with chips, but direct mail is fine too.
Do you know what I'm going to go and get? Because I've just realized I've got it near me. So I'm going to go and get it.
Yes. Okay, RaeAnne, I'll let you answer while Michael's.
The best piece of direct mail. So I actually haven't received anything that was super personalized to myself yet. And that could be because I am not heavy on the LinkedIn content. So there's not much to find on me. But I think majority of what I've received has been things like e-gifts, stuff like that. I did once have an email that referenced taking my family outside. I must have found that on deep in my Instagram, way deep in my Instagram. So it was kind of nice to see where they were coming from, and it was personalized to me. But again, there's a little bit of a line, right? But it was a hiking backpack that they were offering to put my son in at the time. So, which actually I have one of those, and it is actually a great gift. But it would have been a great gift if I didn't already have one.
Fair. Okay. Fair. Can we see the object?
Yeah. So it's just a candle, right? So it's like a scented candle. So it doesn't seem like that special, but actually it's from. So this is more of. I don't even know what you would call the situation, but essentially it was a guy that I coached last year, and he left his old job and. He was looking for a new job. So essentially I introduced him to a company. He ended up getting hired by them as a salesperson. And we have a module called Selling with Less Ego, which is all around the psychology of sales. And then anyway, the candle is called Ego is the Enemy. So it was kind of quite personalized to what I'd done with him. So that was something that really stood out. And I think generally with direct mail, I've had direct mail of people that have sent me alcohol, and I actually quit drinking a year ago. So I think it's always good if you send someone a gift, try and do a bit of research. No, it was fine because I just gave the alcohol to friends and family and stuff. But I think it could have been something more relevant, like this candle. I
love that. Did you like the candle? It looks like you haven't used it. Or is it
no, I have used it a bit. It's a really big one, so it's gone down a tiny bit. But yeah, I only got this a couple of months ago.
Oh, nice. Fair. That didn't mean to call you out. Okay, we have a good question in the chat. What content is most effective in video versus being written out? How would you differentiate between the two? If you have an answer to that. Video versus what?
I think more than anything, it's about the multi-channel approach of making it relevant and just getting it in front of the person. I don't think it matters where I see it or where I hear it specifically. But I will say if I see and hear it multiple times in different ways, I'm probably more likely to remember it and respond.
Love that. Yeah. Michael, anything?
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because I think the problem is everyone is a different personality. Even if you look at SENDOSO and Growth GENIE, right, we're selling to similar audiences like sales and marketing leaders. But even within sales and marketing leaders, I know loads of people who are like phone calls, right, and they love picking up the phone. I know, and they never respond to emails. I get 100 emails a day, don't contact me by email. But then I know other people who never pick up their phone, and they're they're very organized with their email. And then some people videos. Some people find videos cringe. We're saying videos are great. Some people watch a video and they're this is cringe. I don't want to see it. So you kind of have to do a bit of everything to work out what is your prospect likes, and that's why this whole omni-channel cadence thing is the right way to go, because it's just really finding out where does your prospects live and where's the best place to get their attention.
I will say voicemail is something that we haven't touched on much either. And I will almost always listen to my voicemail. Always. I might not answer the phone, but I will definitely listen to your voicemail and potentially get back to you if it's relevant.
Okay, voicemail, untapped potential.
Yeah. On that note as well, something I think people are starting to get familiar with them, but there's actually on LinkedIn, you can send people voice notes as well. So rather than just like a block of text, it's just like if you've ever used voice notes on like WhatsApp, I know that's not as used in North America, but like text is just like they limit you to a minute, which is good as well because you can't talk too much. But yeah, we see about like 3 or 4 times the response rate on like a LinkedIn voice note versus like a normal written message. So.
Love that. We actually got a couple more questions in. Alex asked, I love this one. Do you generally get more engagement when reaching out to mid-tier titles, i.e. managers, than more senior titles like director and up?
I think naturally, if you're going a little bit lower on the totem pole, they're probably going to be getting reached out to a little bit less. I think that you're probably going to see more engagement from, managers if it's assuming that your product is relevant to them, especially if they're the ones that are going to actually be, owning the project that comes with the tools. But that's not to say that's not the perfect way to climb up the totem pole.
I think you can, if you look at it from like an account-based model as well, something you can do is like have conversations with like managers or even like practitioners at low level to do research and like, oh, what tools are you using? What challenges are you facing? Your goal there is not to book a meeting. And essentially, once you've done that, you've got all your personalization that like if you reach out to C-level or director, you've kind of got a lot of information that's happening on the company. Because we've talked a lot today about personalization and going on the internet and getting information. You can also do that by picking up the phone. You can like have a conversation with a colleague and then use all that information and take that to another stakeholder at the company.
Awesome. Yeah, and I also think something that we've been heavily practicing is making sure we're relevant based off of, whether they're a manager or a CMO or whatever it might be. They probably care about very, very different things. So you're probably going to get engaged. You're going to get more engagement if you're most relevant to the personas.
Great. Okay. Another question from Alex. Any sales books or any resources in general with great philosophies or strategies that still hold up well today?
I'm going to go a bit left field here and say that I think it's good to have a basic understanding of sales, but I actually think once you've got that, I recommend reading books about psychology because I've found working with lots of reps over the past years, the biggest obstacle often salespeople face is themselves. Like when they don't want to pick up their phone, they're scared. What if the other person answers? They're in the middle of lunch or whatever it is. Or they don't want to ask their colleague for help because they're like proud and they're like, oh, I don't want to bother my colleague. And it's all like in their own head. So I think often psychology books are like really interesting to read. So there's a guy I read called Carl Jung, who's like old psychologist who talks about like archetypes and he talks about like mythology and things, but by reading it you actually sometimes see parallels to sales. So it's probably not the answer that most people are expecting, but I really recommend like reading psychology books for sales. So
I like that.
I like that a lot, actually. That is definitely one of the largest hurdles, especially in more junior sales reps, is can you keep a level head? So I love that.
RaeAnne, anything?
I mean, as far as books go, I think right now one that our sales team is reading is Above the Line and Below the Line by Skip Miller. And that kind of speaks to what I talked about a little bit on making sure that you're relevant to whether it's a manager or a CMO. So I do think having a pretty solid understanding of that is good for your just base level knowledge when it comes to prospecting. And then again, once you're further on, if you're an account executive or whatever it might be.
Cool. Okay, I think we can answer 2 more questions and then I'll grab your key takeaways. I'm getting, when in a cadence should video be used? Back to the video. First call, second call, third call. And then along the same lines, Christopher is asking, what's your sequence look like when you're including a video message in it? Any tips for these folks?
Yeah, so we have what we like to call strategic sequences, and these are very manual sequences. So these are where we are dropping prospects who we know are top priority, perfect fit, like intent data is telling us like they're primed to reach out to. So what we have in there is a call step first, leaving a voicemail. We also have then a personalized one-off email. So that is where we are attempting to leverage SENDOSO and personalization, value props, making it all relevant. Then we're going to bump that email a couple of days later. And at that point, we're going to call again, and then we're going to drop a video in. We also leverage social in there as well. So it is over the course of about 3 weeks, and we are just heavy on all of those channels.
Okay.
Yeah, I think our cadence is very similar. We've got a piece of content, it's our most popular piece of content called the 30 touch sales cadence, which a lot of people is like, wow, that's mad, that's kind of spam. But it sounds like RaeAnne gets that. But the point of the 30 touch cadence is not like you're just like spamming them with crap. It's like every touch is quite thoughtful. And then in terms of using video, yeah, normally I think it sounds similar to what you're saying you're doing at SENDOSO. We do the video in the third step. The reason we do it in the third step is that when you send a video, you have to send a link, and links can actually get you sent to spam if you use them in like the first email. The reason is that basically a lot of like enterprise companies have this cybersecurity software, and if they see a link, they send you to spam. But the goal is that if someone opens your first email, essentially the server is saying, hey, this is safe. So that's why we tend to use videos in like the third step rather than the first step. And then, yeah, using similar things like a bump. Bumps are a bit of like a controversial topic. People are like, oh, they're lazy. But what I say, the reason bumps are important is that all you're doing, if you spend like 10 minutes making a personalized video, often people are out of office. Often they see it, but they forget to reply, but they're interested. Or they're like, they're just busy with other stuff. They're like on a call or whatever. So what the bump does, it's basically just throwing more attention to the original really good personalized email or video that you've sent. And like one we're using at the moment is just like any feedback on the video, right? As an example. So yeah, bumps, some people don't like them, but they do work.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And right now we're using something very similar. We're using any feedback or any thoughts on this. Just very simple. We did find that the bumping this to the top of your inbox is definitely played out. So we're not using that one anymore.
Okay, any more questions for our speakers today? Drop them in. You can drop them in the chat. You can drop them in the Q&A, whatever you'd like. I see lots of emojis going on, which is awesome. While we're waiting for folks to give us a couple more questions, if that's something that you'd like to do, I'd love to get a key takeaway from each of you. If you had to wrap this up, and I don't use Twitter, but I don't know how many characters there are, say it's like a 2-sentence tweet about the content today, what would you tweet out? Michael, let's start with you.
Just be genuinely curious about your buyers, and be politely persistent as well.
A tweet. I haven't done a tweet in a really long time. Probably like 2012. I would probably say, again, like genuine curiosity, but personalization and a multi-channel approach for sure are my key takeaways here. Is like that seems to be where we are seeing the most success, and it sounds like Michael, same for you.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, the tweet thing is what threw me off, because I think it's like you get like 5 words or something in a tweet, right? So yeah.
I'm like, well, how many character limits even are there on tweets? I don't even know.
I should know before I ask that question. All right, folks. Well, this was really, really helpful. This is amazing content. I learned a lot. I hope our attendees learned a lot as well. I have to pop these slides back on really quickly. I just want to give a huge thank you to the two of you for speaking to SENDOSO, for sponsoring this event. And of course, our audience for spending so much time with us. We're wrapping a little early, which means you can take everything that you learned today and put it into practice right now. You've got like an extra 22 minutes to do so. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you all soon at our upcoming events. Bye, everyone.
Cheers all.
Bye.